go ahead and pull up my slides. All right, are you able to see my slide? Awesome. All right, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. We're just getting started up here, so we'll wait another minute or two to give folks the chance to connect. As you know, it's Food Waste Prevention Week all week. We're right in the middle of it. So hopefully you've been able to see some of the other awesome things going on this week and on our Food Waste Prevention Week. Today we have our webinar about innovative strategies for reducing food waste on university campuses. On our title slide right here, you will see the website for Food Waste Prevention Week. There's also a QR code. If you haven't visited the website, we encourage you to visit it. There are also other really great webinars happening this week. There's still time to catch a couple other ones tomorrow and Friday. So if you have not been able to visit the website, we encourage you to do that. All different topics related to food waste prevention. And there are also some other great activities on there as well if you're looking for more ways to get involved. Different contests going on for social media, things you can share online, and just other ideas on how you can continue to prevent food waste. So thank you again for joining us today. We have a great panel that is ready to share their experiences about how they have implemented different strategies on campus to reduce food waste, and we're really excited to hear from each of them. As you can see, this call is being recorded and it will also be shared on the Food Waste Prevention Week website. After this webinar, you will get emailed a link to the recording in case there's anything you want to go back and refer to afterwards. So let's see the time here. 4:04. Just another minute here. And I'll go ahead and get started by sharing our committee who helped plan this webinar and has planned a few different things for Food Waste Prevention Week geared towards universities and college campuses. Our committee consists of Beth Ann Taylor from Great Forest, Fran Alvarado from Food Recovery Network, Jade Monroe from the Washington State Department of Ecology, and me, Stephanie Delos, from MoveForHunger. So this is our planning committee. And here we have a great photo from Georgetown University's Food Recovery Network. And of course, we have our panelists. So we have Chris Harasta from Binghamton University, Sahar Elkhodary from Georgia State University, and Isabella Stratta from Georgetown University. Dr. Sean Cornell from Shippensburg University. So we will be hearing from each of our panelists. They will be sharing some information with us about how they've been able to reduce food waste on campus. If you have any questions during the webinar, you're welcome to ask in the Q&A. At the end, we hope to have a few minutes. If you have any additional questions that haven't been answered, you can type them in the Q&A, or you should be able to unmute at the end. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with Chris. And I'm so sorry. I left my my intros on a different screen. Let me move them real quick. I didn't think about that when I shared. All right. So let's pull our slides back. Okay, so we have our panelists and we're starting with Chris. So Chris Harasta is the Sustainability Manager for Binghamton University Dining Services with a background in food systems and zero waste initiatives. Chris leads programs that reduce environmental impact while engaging students and staff. His work on the Move Out project reflects a commitment to community collaboration, resource recovery, and practical solutions for campus sustainability. So Chris, you can take it away for us.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy 4 o'clock. So I was originally going to jump on this and talk about food recovery because it's so impactful. But then I saw there was a couple other people, the fantastic panelists that are already going to be covering Food Recovery Network and food recovery. So I decided not to talk about that. Instead, I wanted to talk about something very specific, that is the waste generated during student move out at the end of the spring semester. And it's a very small window of time, but across the board, like every school I've been to, it is astounding how much stuff is thrown away. And so I created a little slideshow here called Finals, Furniture, and Fettuccine, because I love alliteration. But I'm part of my job, and also a side project, is a Binghamton Move Out project, is what we call our initiative to reduce waste and divert it away from the landfill and back into the community. So next slide, please. So this is just one dumpster pretty early on in actually this end of the semester. But in May, usually when the schools close down, what happens is that all the students have finals and they have to move out within a few days, and it's a very stressful time. Sometimes they're graduating and they don't know what they're doing afterward. And so usually the last thing on their mind is what they're going to do with their excess stuff. And what happens is usually like mom and dad will show up with a Subaru and they try to cram a whole like dorm's worth of stuff into that thing, and it was never going to fit. So there's not usually a backup plan other than the dumpster. So Move Out Project is a program that was designed to try to give them an easy solution to donate items instead of throwing them away. And a lot of schools have different projects and different things that they do, and there's not one shoe fits all sort of like solution. But I'm hoping that by going over what we do, maybe there could be some idea in there of something that you might be able to adopt, or vice versa. If you have some ideas that you do in your college, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to me separately if there's not enough time here today. But go ahead and hit next slide. And so this is it's a little busy, but that's sort of an infographic of how Move Out Project works. On the left side, we have where donations are coming from, where waste is being generated. And traditionally, these programs exist on campus, but we also operate off campus. So with the off-campus model, the way it works is that students that are moving out of their apartments will fill out a Google form and say, hey, I'm moving out on May 17th. And we'll have a time slot on May 17th where they can sign up for and leave their donations outside on their porch. And we will send a volunteer there to go pick it up and bring it back to our sorting facility. And it depends on the year where that is. It just has to be a large space. We take up about 5,000 square feet is where we're at right now. The on-campus collections, traditionally, you'll see like bins or collection carts on campus. That's the usual model that campuses adopt, and we do that as well. We set up collection bins around campus at like campus centers and community areas. The best solutions that I've seen operate directly in the dorms, but schools might have security issues with community members getting into dorms. So not all schools, like Binghamton doesn't let us into the dorms, so we operate in community areas instead. But we also set up tents. So on those big days when all the parents go to campus and it's absolute chaos, that's when we set up tents and bring volunteers to campus. And they're there to intercept people going to the dumpster and say, hey, let me help you carry that. If you have anything extra you can't fit in the car, bring it over to us, donate it, we'll get it back to the community. And we fill multiple U-Hauls on those days. And we've done 2 days in the past. This year we're picking up a third day. It's really a lot of stuff that is just by setting up some tents and getting volunteers. And that's where we find most of the student engagement with student volunteers is right when it's on campus. It's easiest for them to get involved, and they want to. Usually you get some students that have a few extra hours they have to meet for volunteer requirements, and that's a great opportunity for them to get involved in that capacity. But regardless of where the stuff comes from, we get it back to our sorting facility, and then we sort it from there. So we'll get to that in just a second. Want to hit the next slide? this is a breakdown of what we're looking at. Now, the biggest category by poundage is clothing, but we're not going to talk about clothing today. That's a whole separate thing. We can get into like fast fashion and all that, but we're not going to touch on that today. So the second largest category is actually food. You're going to find a lot of students, like they have to pick and choose what they're taking home. And usually ramen noodles and canned beans and stuff are not the biggest priority for them when they're packing. So we find that a lot of that stuff gets donated. And actually, we've gotten a lot more food since we partnered with MoveForHunger. You've been sending us, our lovely host has been sending us these bags that I have here, right? They're wonderful. We got about 3,000 this year. And we are stapling little flyers to them that say how to donate. And it's a lot of stapling, but it's worth it. And then we work with Residential Life on campus to distribute those. And they send out one bag per dorm room. And the instructions tell the students, please fill this with food you can't take with you and bring it to one of our drop-off locations on campus. And it's worked out phenomenally. I expect we get probably twice as many bags as last year. We get almost all the dorms we're going to hit up. And that piece of the pie should grow to close to clothing, I would suspect, this year. So next slide. So that's the sort of snapshot of how we posed the food for a photo last year. It's a lot of stuff, and we did end up taking apart all those bags. We sorted all the food in different categories, and then we brought the bags themselves to our food pantry, which then used them to hand out food donations throughout the school year because they're always looking for more bags. So the bags themselves were reused as well. So next slide. Those are just some pictures of our campus operations. The left picture is our donation bin, one of our donation bins that's overflowing. We check it every day, and they would just have so much stuff in them. Phenomenally, actually not much trash, which is surprising because a lot of other schools sometimes find that people are throwing trash in them. So I think it's important to have trash bins nearby to try to reduce that contamination. And then our tent days are in the middle and on the right side there. That's just when we collect all that stuff prior to going to the U-Haul. All right, next slide. And that's everything sorted. That's our founder, Christina, and posing in front of 5,000 square feet of stuff. That's a lot. And yeah, so next slide. Then what we do with all the stuff at the end is what we call shopping days. We invite community organizations. And last year we had about 40 of them. They're nonprofits in the community to come, and they sign up for a time slot in one of 2 days. And they can come and collect anything they want to support their programs. It could to support their clients, their programs, whatever they need it for. We don't ask any questions. They come and take everything for free, and almost everything goes during the shopping days. And then we find a local Tioga County mission, I think, comes and collects the rest of it at the end. So nothing goes to waste unless it's like a smashed TV or some literal garbage. But yeah, it's a great program. I think it takes a lot of effort, and not, like I said, it might not work for everybody because it takes a lot of time and volunteer work for our model, but definitely there's models out there that don't take that. And I encourage everybody, if you don't have a system set up in place for your campus, reach out, because there's a lot of different models out there, and some of them might work for you. Some of them are very easy to implement, relatively speaking. So thank you for your time. And that's my piece today. I don't think I have any more slides, right? Okay, then that's it. So thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. It's great hearing about your move out project. I do see, I didn't want to click on them while we were in the slides, but I wanted to see if we had any Q&A. So it looks like there is a question: how did you get Residence Life to participate? Some universities express difficulties getting engagement, as Resident Life is already very busy. It considers it not their problem.
Absolutely. That's a good question because it's a busy time for everybody, especially Resident Life. So a big thing for them was that they didn't have to do anything during move out itself. We brought up our timeline a week earlier so that we can get them the bags distributed before they have to worry about move out time. We really don't ask anything of them during move out itself because we know that that's an intense time for them. But we also broach the subject through intermediaries. So we originally went to our auxiliary services because I'm with dining services. So we went through auxiliary services, and they originally broached the subject with the different departments for us. And that helped having it come from some other areas. Our sustainability department, you know, had a big influence in that as well. But once they realized it wasn't a huge lift for them, and we were able to give a shout out to them a little bit, I think that helps too. That we were able to make a good partnership.
Thank you, Chris. That's really helpful. Just a reminder, this is being recorded, so everyone will be emailed a link to the recording after. If you have any questions during the webinar, you're welcome to type them in the Q&A chat. Our panelists will be able to type answers throughout the webinar, and then hopefully at the end, we will have a few minutes if there are any lingering questions. So next, we have a great presentation about the Food Recovery Network, and we have a joint presentation. So first, we'll be kicking us off is Sahar Elkhodary, Bachelor of Science, Registered Dietitian Nutritionist, Licensed Dietitian, who is a Food Recovery Network alumni who created the first ever Food Recovery Network chapter in Georgia through Georgia State University. As of 2022, Sahar became a registered dietitian, and over the past year, she has become licensed to work as a dietitian in 3 states, including DC, Maryland, and Virginia, with Virginia being her host residential state, which accepts this credential without needing a license. And the second part of this presentation is with Isabella Stratta, who is a senior at Georgetown University studying international relations and business. She's the co-president of the Food Recovery Network chapter on her campus, where she coordinates with student volunteers, Georgetown's dining hall provider, and administrators to rescue any surplus food to donate it to community organizations and shelters in the DC area. So Sahar is going to start us off this section.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the wonderful introduction. I truly appreciate it. It is quite an honor to be here with everyone this afternoon discussing about the same goal. I've been thinking about what I was going to say over the past couple of weeks because food recovery has been very important to me for a very long time, since childhood. But being able to find Food Recovery Network only about 9 years ago now has been truly a blessing and has served as part of my passion in what I do as a dietitian. I would like to share that I am wearing one of my favorite t-shirts, Food Recovery Network. I got one as a alumni through Student Advisory Board, SOB, a couple years back, and I wanted to show my support. So let's get started. Stephanie, if you don't mind moving to the next slide, please. So our mission, right? We're fighting food waste and we're always wanting to find a way to feed people. Something that really came to me and spoke to me very deeply was when I was in Atlanta, Georgia, deciding on how I wanted to give back to the community and trying to figure out how. I've noticed that a lot of residents that live in Atlanta, Georgia, were homeless and they were living underneath a highway near the state capitol without food, without shelter, without hope to continue. This organization started it all with just 5 students in a college who wanted to create a mission to feed people. And if it weren't for that to start in 2011, we wouldn't be here today. We now have over 8,000 college students, business leaders, and dining providers helping us to recover surplus food from across the country and deliver it to local community nonprofits. This in turn will help serve individuals and families experiencing food insecurity and hunger. With my background in behavioral health, eating disorders, as well as with the research I have done with food insecurity, there are, as we call, food deserts all across the country. And one of the ways we can serve those food deserts is how? Through Food Recovery Network. Next slide, please. So now the history, which I've already shared so much already, but we're gonna walk through each timeline so that you all will get a better understanding as to why I'm so passionate about Food Recovery Network. 2011, 5 students at the University of Maryland, so right around here, very local, they decided that once they noticed good food was going to waste on their campus, they wanted to figure out how they could redistribute it to people in need. And that's when they started creating the model of food recovery network. In 2015, just 4 years later, we have 100 campuses nationwide able to start helping with this initiative. Regina Harmon was hired as the executive director. In 2017, FRV, they kick off and contribute in the recovery of more than 2.5 million pounds of food to date through corporate partnerships. In 2020, we all know what 2020 was, the COVID-19 pandemic. It resulted in many campus closures, and students were continuing to serve the area and serve nonprofit communities and help with the alleviation of hunger, especially in DC, where we have the capital area food bank. I knew that that was one way in which we could help all of our people, because what are we? We are a people. We are not them. We are not they. We are not those. We are a people. We are one together as a human race. And continuing forward here, when we go into 2022, right before then, FRN had established a data-driven, equity-centered strategic framework called FRN 10X to frame the growth over the next 10 years. That way we could continue with our data collection. In 2022, 5.5 million pounds of food were recovered by Food Recovery Network, and it is much more than the previous 10 years combined. In 2023, we reach 200 campuses who are serving 330 hunger fighting partners. In 2024, our network has grown to the 8,000 plus people, students, food suppliers, farmers, local businesses, grocery stores, all across the US in the fight against climate change and hunger. Next slide, please. To date, 18.3 million pounds of surplus food was recovered. Excuse me. I am so passionate about this that to even see the number 18.3 million pounds of additional food that was going to be thrown away was recovered is huge. The facts are here. It's equivalent to the weight of 3 Saturn V rockets. 9,800 metric tons of CO2 of emissions were prevented, which is the same as growing 162 trees for 10 years. And 15.2 million meals were donated to feed people, which was enough to stretch plates of food 1/3 of the way around the world. Next slide, please. FRN is a national organization with a local solution. I can't say it better than that. We are local, only in the United States for right now, but hopefully we can grow even further. Please, the next slide. What we do is we recover food, we advocate for those in need, and we hope having community engagement to be able to continue our initiative and our mission. Next slide, please. So the student-led food recovery process. Usually, college students create a chapter and they hire volunteers to safely recover surplus food from their campuses and communities. And then the students transport the recovered food to their hunger fighting nonprofit partners like local churches, local communities in which people are of a high need. And then the nonprofit partner repurposes the FRN's food donations to feed their community, like the soup kitchens, like all the things in which we try to give food back to our community. Next slide, please. And here we are. This is Panther Food Recovery Network that I created February 18th, 2016. That is me in a green t-shirt with red hair. 9 years ago, which I'll never do that hair color again. But anyway, 47,663 pounds, 0.35, because we want to make sure we include all the pounds that were recovered since 2016. And that is the equivalent of 39,719 meals given to individuals experiencing food insecurity. 30.11 tons of CO2 emissions were prevented. That's the equivalent of 7 passenger vehicles driven for an entire year. And 1 community partner was served, which is the one you see in this picture. Outreach Safe House. Oh, Safe House Outreach. I apologize for that error, but just know that if you can save this much in only 9 years, imagine what you could do later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahar. I'm so excited to tell you all about Georgetown University chapter of the Food Recovery Network. So we're a small but mighty team, and seeing our chapter grow has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my time at college so far. So we have about 30 volunteers. We've recovered 9,000 pounds so far since 2023, which is equivalent to about 7,500 meals. And we love our recoveries, but we also have begun to start thinking about the different ways that we can create change on campus, and have tried to do more advocacy and community bonding events on campus. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, food recovery is kind of the anchoring part of our chapter, and we've tried to also innovate within that. So right now our team is trying to switch to only using reusable containers. So as you can see in the pictures, we have the aluminum tins, and these are very helpful, and they really helped us at the beginning when we just were trying out the idea. But now, since we kind of have a more established chapter, we want to use only reusable containers so that we can improve sustainability within our own operations. In terms of advocacy, a few students have participated, and myself included, in the Gen Z Food and Hunger Summit. It's an annual gathering of student leaders across the hunger and food waste space in DC. We spend a day advocating for different food waste bills and hunger bills in Congress. So I've spoken to a few staffers about the Food Date Labeling Act, which is aimed at standardizing food labels to prevent household food waste. So that's one opportunity for advocacy. I also got to talk at the Second Nature panel, which is directed towards university sustainability officials and teams. And the panel was focused on how to best support student leaders who are implementing sustainable practices and clubs on their campuses. And then lastly, we have we just recently presented at the DC Student Sustainability Panel, which is a gathering of local universities. And so these are also ways for students to kind of share strategies and learn from each other on how to make their campus a zero waste campus. In terms of community engagement, we have this great sort of national initiative that's called Weigh the Waste, and it's a great way for dining hall providers and universities across the country to build awareness at the end of the sort of supply chain, the consumer level. So what we do is that when we set up a scale right next to the sort of dish return, and we make students weigh their food so that they understand how much food waste they're producing. At the end of the week, we publish the numbers for the entire university, and so this is meant to kind of build awareness, to have students rethink how they approach like going to the dining hall. Maybe they can ask for a bit less if they're not that hungry. And so this is kind of the thinking around that. Next slide, please. Our impact is thanks to, in large part, to having a national organization. So just like Sahar was saying earlier, I mean, FRN's national strength is also from having such a big network, and the support that the individual chapters get is through one-on-one calls, access to FRN's network, and chapter grants. I can tell you that the chapter grants have been instrumental in us getting the new reusable containers, and also funding our community bonding events and different sort of inventory and supplies that we need to do recoveries. Next slide, please. And we also wanted to share this really exciting opportunity for community colleges. So if anyone on the call or later watching the recording sees this, so the Community College Grants is a program to help establish food recovery programs at community colleges across the U.S. The colleges will be selected to receive 1 year of technical and financial assistance to set up food recovery programs on their campuses, beginning in the fall of 2025. The grant recipients will also be awarded recognition and serve as models for how community colleges can play a vital role in helping feed community members in need. And applications are open until the end of the month. So we just wanted to share a bit about that. Next slide, please. And lastly, we didn't want to end the panel just telling you about what we do. We also want to tell you about what you can do. So one option is if you're a student, you can start an FRN chapter at your university. Just check out our website. There's ways to get in touch with the team. You can start, having these conversations on how to approach that. If you're an alumni, you can put FRN in touch with the sustainability department or connect us with your favorite professor so that we can come to your campus and tell students about our mission, and hopefully a chapter can be started there. And lastly but not least, a lot of power comes from sharing and sharing on our wide networks that we're all certainly a part of. So follow us and share the work that we are doing. And thank you all so much for listening.
Awesome. It was so great to hear from the Food Recovery Network and all the amazing work that has been done and is currently being done. I'm going to pop open the Q&As here to see if there's anything that hasn't been answered. So panelists, if you see any questions, I see there's one on here about move outs. Someone did ask too, could you say a little more about the reusable containers? What kind of containers are they? How big? How do they get returned for reuse? And who washes them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So, what we've settled on is a kind of a mix of different sizes. So we use 8-quart and 4-quart containers. These are kind of like the plastic clear ones with the lids. I don't know how best to describe it, but if you look it up, it's very standard across the dining space. So those are the ones we use. For reuse and return, we basically are implementing this program where at our partner agency, we will have sort of 2 sets. So one set is for, like, let's say I have a recovery tomorrow. We bring the containers there. We leave them so that they can store the food there. And then the next week we come back with the second set and swap over. So this way it's that allows them to use them as, containers, and we also get them the next week. So kind of like this exchange model that can work well. And I'm seeing what kind of reusable containers. We use the Choice brand. You can either buy them on Amazon or West Restaurant Store, I believe. So yes, and we can send the link to the community college grant application. Thank you all for the questions.
Thank you. That's a good point. Any important links, I'll ask the panelists to share. And when I email everybody the link to the recording, we'll make sure to include all the important links so that it's easy for you to find them. So thank you again, Sahar and Isabella, for sharing about Food Recovery Network. And last but not least, we have Dr. Sean Cornell, who is an associate professor at Shippensburg University, where he is lucky to live and teach in the Cumberland Valley of South Central Pennsylvania. He is broadly interested in geology, marine and coastal geoscience, and sustainable agriculture. Dr. Cornell grew up on a dairy farm in the foothills of the Adirondacks of upstate New York. His family's farm also produced maple syrup. He earned degrees from the University of Rochester and the University of Cincinnati. He teaches more than 12 different courses at Shippensburg, as well as the Chincoteague Bayfield Station in Wallops Island, Virginia, and internationally in Curacao and the Bahamas. Dr. Cornell now serves as an affiliated scholar at the CLUS and helped advise student groups who developed, launched, and maintains the Ship Compost program and the university's food waste reduction activities that are the subject of this session. So, all right, Dr. Cornell, please take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And thank you, Isabella, Sahar, and Chris. Wonderful to be part of this team. And I will apologize in advance. I do have an older dog who's a little senile, so you may hear her barking in the background. But she knows that I'm home, so that's partly why. But anyway, so I'm excited to talk to you a little bit we had a food recovery network chapter on our campus, and we haven't been able to bring it back since COVID. That's something that we really definitely would like to do. But I wanted to talk a little bit about our approach on the other side of the, so yes, the food recovery piece, but also what about the food waste? So I want to talk a little bit about that. And if you want to just go ahead and go to the next slide. So our ship composting program really kind of, and I think Chris talked a little bit about this, the spectrum of waste that comes from our campuses, but our students saw that waste as well. So we had two organizations, Enactus, which was through our College of Business, and they're sort of focused on improving the world through entrepreneurship. And then we also have the what at the time was called SEAS, Students for Environmental Action and Sustainability. It's now been sort of lumped together with the Campus Farm and other organizations under one umbrella called Green League. But those two organizations were really interested in, and go ahead, the next slide. Sort of wrestling with that, again, that food waste to climate change connection, right? And so as you probably all know, right, a significant portion of the food that's produced in the United States is wasted, and Chris did a great job talking about the impact of that. Sahar talked a little bit in her her presentation about the real critical importance of removing that carbon from the atmosphere, right, and sort of ways that that we track the food recovery process. So that's really what the students were addressing. Next slide, please. So we got together and this sort of came together. Students came and said, hey, we really want to do something. And right about the same time, the Campus Farm had been launched where we were looking to provide a place for students to grow some food. We also have in our community something known as the Shippensburg Produce and Outreach Organization, which was started by a group of churches that were kind of bringing their resources together to provide weekly food distribution for family members in need. And then, of course, our Center for Land Use and Sustainability kind of got together and said, can we bridge these issues related to the food waste, the food insecurity that our community has, and of course, the soil health. I have to toss in the agricultural piece, right? So obviously we wanted to reduce waste. We have to support the development of our on-campus educational campaigns and the Campus Farm, and then also increase our capacity to do some composting. So not sending that food waste out to the landfills, right? And so that, of course, helped to reinforce the Campus Farm's mission. So we'll go ahead and start to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we did very early in the process is we know we were not going to have funding from our campus to make this happen. So we had to go after grant work. But in order for us to go after grants, you have to have data, you have to have information. So our first couple of years, we were tracking, we worked with our facilities and our waste hauler to do a monthly food tally of the waste that we were sending off of campus. And you can sort of see that we started tracking that. And what we found is that when we started to share this data directly with our students and our staff and the university, that was really powerful, because those big numbers, especially when you start to break it down into a per person or per POS as somebody swipes their card through the dining, right, that point of sale perspective, that kind of starts to give us the ability, and this is sort of the average pounds annually per student for a period of time, right? So you can sort of see the ups and downs, and this was, pretty good that we had this long time decrease. So that was enough, right, to get us money, grants, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But one of the things that we'll do, and I'll come back to this, is data. So every fall, right, we do like a 4 or 5 day campaign, and that was the really cool thing, right? The way the waste that you talked about, Isabella, right? We do the same exact thing, and we make the students sort their food waste right from the get-go, early in the semester, and that's very powerful. And I'll talk about why that is a little bit later on. But yeah, so data every year is important. So like I said, okay, go ahead. Yep. Next slide. Yeah, so again, we had to, that's what we needed. We needed grants. So we worked with Healing the Planet grant. We went to the Walmart Foundation, the Giant Company, Procter and Gamble, Volvo. And, the key thing that we needed, obviously we needed to be able to have a system to process our food waste, right? And so that's what we needed the grants really for. So we needed some equipment. So Tilly, the tractor, was wonderful, and part of our campaign to get that. And it's an eco diesel tractor, so that allows us to burn, waste, fry oil and things like that in there, instead of just going and buying straight up diesel. But one of the cool things is what allowed us to get that tractor is that we had a naming campaign. So if you donated to the campaign, then you could put your name in the hat for a name, and that was pretty cool. But the funds that we were able to do got us that tractor, it got us a trailer, and it got us a food pulper, right? So that we could reduce the volume of the food waste coming out of the dining hall before we could even get it to the farm. Of course, lots of educational information, and more importantly than anything, Shippensburg University is a public school, public university, and our students are not, they're struggling, right, financially. So all students are, I know this, but it was really great that we could get some grant funds to actually help to pay students for their hours of time in this program. So next slide. So we also knew from the get-go that we were going to have to do a lot of educational outreach, and it's not my intention to go through all the kinds of things that we do, but here's just sort of a listing of the ways that we've really worked to raise the understanding and perception of our food system and the waste that it generates. And so, we do, like I said, these small scale food waste assessments, right? These weigh the waste campaigns, huge, very important. Doing hands-on composting demonstrations on campus at least twice a year, if not a little bit more. We bring actually our whole district, our school district here. We bring all of the 7th graders, which is almost 300 students in 12 or so classes. And we bring all kindergartners, to campus and to the campus farm for those sort of environmental days, right? So really, how does composting enhance our soil? How are we taking that food waste and enhancing our earth? And so we had other programs as well. And I don't want to spend time, but again, we really wanted to embed our community in the process. And so the way we did that was pretty cool. And I want to mention one thing, because in the university setting, right, we're pretty much operating from fall to spring, and there's really not much happening in the summertime. But we have partnered, we bring international students to Shippensburg University almost every summer. And then we partner with our summer lunch program that provides free lunches for kids and community members at need. So our campus farm produce, kids come to the farm, our international students help work with the kids at the farm, and then we go and enjoy a meal together from, the fruits of our labor, quite literally. And it's been a huge and fun, project to launch. Next slide, please. Obviously, we all do these Earth Day and Stewardship Week, programs. Again, specifically directed towards, we have an on-campus laboratory school as well as our community schools. So that gives us the opportunity to work with them. But I think the most powerful part and point that I want to raise is that it's the opportunity for our college students to do the training, right? To teach to the next generation. And that's a very powerful experience for both parties, right? The college students are learning how to communicate with a broad audience. They feel good about doing that. And of course, the kids just really look up to the college students as well. So we'll go to the next slide. Again, embedding ourselves in the community. And here you see our university president coming out and representing with the first dog, wonderful little animal. But again, just really helping to engage our community members. But we also use this as the opportunity to help the university put its foot into the community with regard to community resiliency and getting them to start thinking about resiliency and all the different ways that we can help our community be more resilient. And part of that is supporting our food system. And so that was really kind of a fun, annual activity as well that we've launched. Next slide, please. I think this is the powerhouse slide for me. And this is really the thing that is our game changer. Every year, we have summer orientation. So students and parents, it's a one-day orientation. I know some universities have a multi-day orientation. So there's a lot of information that's sort of thrown at our students, you know, and so one of the things that they all have to do is they have to come to the dining hall for a meal during their orientation. So we use this as an opportunity, right, to talk to them about ship compost, about the campus farm, and about food waste. And so you know, this gives us the opportunity to talk about mindful eating and coming back to something that we was talked about earlier about, you know, nutrition, especially, and selecting the foods but also, you know, once you're done with that food, where does that food go to, right? And so we talk a little bit about the composting, you know, program, so that when those kids come back, the university students come back to the campus in the fall, they already know a little bit about what's happening, right? Next slide, please. So, you know, in our system, obviously, you know, we have a trayless dining hall. We instituted that a number of years ago. We found out that that's a significant decrease in food waste. People are not taking as much food when they have a plate versus a tray. But again, still there's this, you know, okay, I'm going to take that plate and drop it on the conveyor belt and I'm going to go back and get more food. And so one of the things that we wanted to do early on in the year, right, is again, the Weigh the Waste campaign, right, is you're going to scrape your food and we're going to weigh it and we're going to show you exactly what the weight was of that food. And that automatically has a significant impact on behavior. The students they're taking much less food on their plate, and they're actually tasting the food before they take more of it, which is very significant. But anyway, so the food goes, right, scrape the plates, it goes to the pulper, and the next slide. And then it goes to our composting system. And so we're still trying to work for state licensing and permitting. It's been a long drawn out process for us with both lots of gains, but also some setbacks. So we still don't have a full scale composting system that we wanted to have. So we do small scale composting, but again, this is the consequence of our behavioral modification, because when we first started, we anticipated that we were going to have thousands and thousands of pounds of food waste to have to compost. But we don't actually have to do that because of the behavior change that we've seen. So we try, you know, vermicomposting, that's that black tube there. So the worms are free to come up and down into the ground. That's wonderful. We have the roller bins. We do some windrows. We also practice a hugelkultur. And so it's pretty amazing. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner there, a picture, upper left-hand corner of our finished compost that we're producing on the farm, even in these small scale ways. Next slide, please. And so then what do we do with it, right? Well, we want to finish the process, right? So we want students to know when they take that plate of food, where that food waste is going to go, how it gets processed, and then what is going to happen with it on the other side of it. So, right, and it goes right here to our campus farm and our campus orchards, which we installed just before COVID. So we have, you know, a tremendous program, not only in planted crops that we harvest annually, but also in terms of the edible food forests that we've been starting to develop. So you can see on the right-hand side, in the tree line back there is an edible forest that we've been developing, and that's right along a stream. And that was one of the complex things that we had because of our permitting. We were able to get that stream classified in July of this year as a Class 8 trout stream, and it had not been in over 40 years a Class 8 trout stream. But with that meant that the setbacks that we needed for our composting permit went from 100 feet to 250 feet. So that's why we can't actually have a full-scale composting system. But that edible food forest is now already in production for us. Elderberries, currants. We're working on a mushroom, you know, site in there as well. But there's hazelnuts, pawpaws, persimmons, things like that are sort of naturalized as well. Next slide, please. And then, of course, what do we do with all that food? And I just today, we just had a health and wellness fair on our campus, in which we did demonstrations on how to grow your own sprouts, and we brought our eggs, and so both chicken eggs and duck eggs that we have. By the way, they're important too in the food system because some of that food we don't need to run to the pulper. Some of that food can go right straight over and be wonderful scratch for our chickens. But right, we partnered with Big Red Cupboard, which is an on-campus food bank for our students, right, free of charge. We'll fill the refrigerator when we have excess produce. But most of our food goes back to the Shippensburg Produce and Outreach, and you can see the picture in the upper left-hand corner there. The Shippensburg Produce and Outreach, when it first started, was serving around 100 families a week. It's now serving almost 500 families a week with fresh fruits, vegetables, dairy, cheese. And so in the summer months, it's thousands of pounds of produce that we grow and deliver every Tuesday. And then, in addition to that, in the summer months, we also do something called Fountain Fridays on our campus in front of our old main. We have a beautiful fountain. We pull the tractor up for a couple of hours, and it's a pay-as-you-may, pay-as-you-might type of food market. So it's whatever we have. It's whatever we have is fresh. And if you don't have any money in your pocket, that's great. Take something. But if you got a little extra money in your pocket, put it in, and then that money goes right back into tools, seeds, and other, a little bit of maintenance on the tractor, that kind of thing. Next slide. So, one back. So again, I just want to say that this whole thing has really been sort of an evolution over about, really 12 years, but about the last 10 in particular. But what was really exciting about this, collective effort, bringing in so many people from different parts of the campus, both from the faculty, the students, right, and the community members, is that the university not only was able to be recognized as a green ribbon school in 2022 by the Federal Department of Education, but we're also continued to be listed as a green college by Princeton Review. And there are now students that are coming to Shippensburg University specifically because of the program that we've established, right? And it's a recruitment tool. And it's also a place where students go, when they're stressed, when they're struggling in the classroom, if they want to go down, to the farm and just hang out with a couple of chickens for a little while, or go talk to the goats, or pull some weeds, or hey, it's a Friday night and you want to go down there and hang out with your friends, go down there and hang out with your friends. And that's what happens. But it's that full scale process from, putting food on the plate until that food is returned back to a plate. And that's really what we're kind of excited about continuing to do. Yeah, so anyway, I think the last slide is just to say thank you to everybody, and to, again, say huge thank you to Stephanie and the whole team that's involved in food recovery, food waste prevention. This is just an amazing opportunity, and I couldn't be happier to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cornell. So many amazing things you shared with us. I know we have a bunch of questions in the chat, so we will look there in just a sec. I did include some links or these QR codes if you are interested. There's a link here for Campus Move Out Food Drive that Chris talked about earlier. If you're interested in having that supported by MoveForHunger, free of charge, there's a QR code here to sign up. Here is a QR code if you're interested in starting a chapter with Food Recovery Network. And then I believe this third one is for social media challenges that are going on for Food Waste Prevention Week. As I mentioned before, I will ask the panelists to send me any other links that were mentioned in their presentation, and we will send those out after with the recording of this call. But now we've gone through the slides. That was all perfect timing. Thank you so much to all our panelists for sharing. I'm going to look through here and see if there's any questions we haven't answered yet. Let's see. There is some chat here about those reusable containers. That was definitely a hot topic. Is contamination a problem for your compost? I think that's for Dr. Cornell.
So again, that's one of the beautiful things about our pulper is that if there's paper products, right, that go in there, if there's an occasional bone or two, I mean, we tried, I mean, our our big permit was so that we could actually do the meat components. So we try to, keep that to a minimum, but our food pulper really helps us to pull that in. And that's why the vermicomposting, so if we do get a little bit of additional meat product in there, that's wonderful. The worms really handle that very, very well, actually. And then there's actually a black fly called a soldier fly that, will also, go to that particular product. That's why having that open top is really useful. Because then the soldier fly larvae handle more of that meat product, better. And then of course the chickens, that's like their favorite food completely. And so, yeah, but we are very careful to try, obviously, to avoid lots of sort of a single stream in any one mix. And then we're lucky enough that we get all the campus grounds wood and leaf material at the campus farm. So that allows us to mix that in so that we don't have a particularly high level of any one, especially something that might smell or produce issues. But in terms of other kinds of contamination, I think that education has been really huge, so that people realize that, okay, this is something that isn't going to go, into compost. And that's, yeah, I think that's how we avoid that issue.
Thank you for answering that. If you haven't looked in the question and answer section of this webinar, there have been a few questions already answered. There was a question about the link to the community college grant application. It was already answered. Isabella shared the link there in the Q&A if that was something you were looking for, and make sure you check it out there. Isabella also shared a link to the reusable containers that she is currently using through her program. And in the general open questions, there has also been a few resources shared as well. I see raccoon eyes, some other reusable containers that have been successful, and a few other mentions there of things that have been helpful in reducing food waste. So we do have just another minute or two. If anyone has any last questions, feel free to put them in the question and answer. I believe you should be able to unmute as well. So I'll wait just a moment here to see if any last questions come through. Before we go, I see. All right, we're just getting a lot of excitement here. This was great. Thank you for the session. Thank you everybody for sharing. Any last questions? Any last thoughts? A lot of great information was shared here. As I said, the recording will be sent to you along with any important links that were mentioned in the presentations. We hope that this has been helpful for you to think about different ways that you can continue to reduce food waste on campus. Every little bit helps, whether it's hosting a food drive or composting or working with your dining halls. Whatever you can do is going to make a difference. So thank you all for your interest. Thank you all for being here. And to our panelists, one last big thank you to you all for preparing and sharing all this information about all the great work you're already doing. Thank you all again for attending, and hope you have a great rest of Food Waste Prevention Week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great job, everybody.